Now, the IMF is set to issue a downbeat world economic update for this year. Leaders have been meeting to discuss an action plan for slowing global recovery. The latest report will be announced in less than an hour. The IMF predicted 6% global growth for the year 3 months ago, but its chief has warned that the number will be scaled down in its latest report. Worsening supply chain bottlenecks and rising inflationary pressures are largely to blame. Fears are growing that a period of stagflation could be on the cards. Well, Nick Harper joins us live now. Nick, the latest report is expected to be less optimistic. What has changed from 3 months ago?
Well, I think simply put, the IMF has realised that the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic is taking longer than everyone hoped. The IMF has already warned that this new projection that we'll have in under an hour will show that growth will moderate slightly compared to their projection. Just a few months ago, the IMF chief, Kristalina Georgieva, has said that global recovery is being hobbled by the pandemic. She likened it to walking with a stone in your shoe. Quite simply, it makes things just that little bit harder. Supply chains severely impacted, as we know, by the global pandemic, and the recovery of those supply chains is taking longer. On top of that, we've also got rising commodity prices. Food prices, the IMF say, have gone up 40% globally since the start of the pandemic, and also sharply rising inflation as well. It's likely to peak at some point this autumn, over the next couple of months, the IMF say, and it will recede into the middle of next year. And at that point, it will be at pre-pandemic levels. But all of those things combined simply making it harder for that recovery to happen around the world.
And there are growing calls to raise funds for poorer countries.
That's right, yeah. These are the fragile states, as the IMF terms them, places that are hit by particular problems they already had before the pandemic hit. So war-torn countries, places with extreme poverty or are impacted by severe climate change issues like drought. The IMF saying that quite simply collaboration is needed, that richer countries need to do more to help these much poorer countries. The IMF has already pledged $7.5 billion of funds, but despite that, they say that GDP in these fragile states has dropped by 6.6% in the last year. So they're urging countries to do more. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has also spoken about this. He says that more than 1 million people have been forced into poverty because of the pandemic. That COVID-19 recovery, which is hard for the whole world, has been particularly exacerbated in these fragile states.
Well, thanks for that, Nick Harper in Washington, D.C.